In order to make a hat, you will need a loom. We have 3 different sizes, 2 different types of yarn, a hook like this one, a big needle, a ruler, and some scissors. To start a hat, we need to make a slip knot, and here's one really easy way to do it. I start by making the number 4, and then I'll take the bottom part of the number and pull it up and through the loop, and then just pull it tight. You can tie a slip knot in any way that you know how to, but the reason why it needs to be a slip knot for step 1 is so that it can just come undone like that. So I'll just show you one more time how to do this. Make the number 4, put the bottom part up and through, and then pull it tight. Now I'll take this slip knot and I'm going to put it on this peg that's poking out horizontally from the loom on the side, and just pull it tight. Now I'm going to take the long end of yarn and I'm going to start wrapping it around the pegs. This is going to make each of the stitches for the hat. As you can see, I'm wrapping around each peg clockwise, but I'm moving around the loom counterclockwise. It's really important that you wrap around clockwise or else it'll mess you up in the next steps. So I'm just going to keep wrapping it around clockwise until I get this first layer done. Now I've finished wrapping the first layer around the loom. I wrapped near the bottom of the pegs. This will make the next step a little easier. And as you can see, the inside of the circle is connected. That's how you know you've gone around each peg the correct direction, is that all the yarn will be connected on the inside. Now I'm going to start wrapping again, but this time instead of wrapping near the base, I'm wrapping near the top to make a distinct separate layer from the first time I went around. So I'm just going to keep doing this until I finished making 2 layers on the loom. I've just finished wrapping my second layer around the loom, but before I move on, I'm going to make sure that I wrapped around each peg in the correct direction. Now, I'm going to take the hook and I'm going to move the bottom layer of yarn up and over the peg. Make sure when you're doing this that you grab both pieces of yarn from that bottom layer rather than just one. Something that happens frequently as you're doing this step is your top layer will become unraveled if you let go of the yarn. So a pro tip I would recommend is just doing that last peg very first, and that way you can let go of the yarn and just keep moving the bottom layer up and over the pegs without worrying about your top layer unraveling. We've officially finished the first row on our hat, so now it's time to continue making these rows. To continue making a hat, you'll start by pushing the top layer down to the bottom of the peg. This will become our new bottom layer, so we will continue to do the steps as described in starting a hat, except instead of wrapping around the loom twice, you will only wrap around it once. I'll show you how to do that here. So, you can see my bottom layer is already on the peg after I've pushed it down, and I'm just going to wrap around the top part of the loom. Remember to wrap around each peg clockwise and move around the loom counterclockwise. Now that I've finished wrapping my top layer, I'm going to take this hook tool to move the bottom layer up and over each peg. Once I finished going all the way around the loom, I will take the new top layer and push it down to the bottom and then start wrapping again. And you'll just do these steps over and over again to make the hat. I've been working on the hat for a little bit now, and I think it's about time to make the brim, but first I need to measure to see if it's long enough. Using one of the rulers provided in the office, I'm going to see how long my work needs to be before I fold the brim. But do keep in mind that if you're working on the smallest loom we have provided, you will need no brim, so you can skip this step. So just to be clear, only the medium-sized looms and the large-sized looms will need a brim. I'm going to take the ruler provided by the office and put it inside the hat, and then stretch out the stitching to see how long it truly is. It looks like mine is just about 3.5 inches, which is perfect for this size of loom, so I'm going to move on to making the brim. First, start by taking your hat and folding it up and through the loom like so. The brim is just the thicker part of the hat that covers your forehead and ears, and so we're basically just going to take what we've done and fold it in half. As you can see, once I folded the hat up and through, I'm able to unravel that very end and see the very first row of stitches that we made. This is going to be the new top layer that we're going to put on the pegs rather than wrapping around this time. So as you can see, I'm carefully finding that last row and putting it on the pegs. Something to watch out for here is to make sure that you're putting both pieces of yarn from that last row over the peg instead of just one. Also be sure that you're only taking from that last row and not from other rows behind it. Once you've gone all the way around folding the hat in half, you can see that there's now 2 layers of yarn on each peg. I'm just going through and checking to make sure that the layers are separated and nice. Now, take the hook and you're going to move the bottom layer up and over the peg, like so. Now the brim is almost done and it's looking really good, but first we're going to take the yarn from when we started the hat and tie it off. So I just undid the slip knot and now I'm tying a knot closer to the brim of the hat, and I'll use the scissors to trim it close and then just kind of tuck it in. Now that I've tied off that first part and tucked it in, I'm going to continue with the process of making the hat. For more detailed instructions on how to continue a hat, please refer to that section of the video. I've just about finished the hat, but first I need to check to make sure it's long enough. Grab one of the rulers provided by the office and check to see what length you have to make the hat for your specific loom. This loom requires the hat to be 5.5 inches, so I just stick the ruler on the inside to see if it matches that length. Now we're ready to start tying off the hat and taking it off the loom. To make sure I have enough yarn for this process, I'll take it and wrap it all the way around the loom before cutting it off. This will ensure that I don't run out as I do the next part. Now, take the yarn and thread it through the needle like shown here. You only need to pull it through about 4 or 5 inches, just so you have enough to hold on to while you do the next part. Now I'm going to use the needle to thread the yarn through each loop, going from the bottom up and through, as you can see here. After I've threaded it through a few loops, it doesn't matter exactly how many, I'm going to take this hook tool to take the yarn completely off the peg, leaving nothing on there. After you've done this, you'll just repeat the process of using the needle to thread the yarn through and then using the hook to take the yarn completely off until you've made it all the way around the hat. Now that I've taken it completely off the loom, it should look something like this. So, all you need to do now is pull the yarn tight, like you're tying a drawstring bag, and then tie it off. You can see how I tie it off here. I'll pull it nice and tight, and then I'll turn the hat inside out and use the needle to help me tie a really tight knot, but you can honestly tie the knot however you think is best. Just make sure that the hat is pulled nice and tight to close the hole at the top. Once you finish tying the knot, you're done with the hat. Congratulations on finishing a hat here at YServe, and thank you for your service.